So, this is Morning Perfect Base. I'm Van Velding. Today, I'm just going to do a little bit of husbandry. I'm going to build in the upper levels here. I'm going to collect some of these lily pads so that I can make... I don't want to make another wooden bridge like I did last time. What I would like to do is to make a lily pad bridge, which is slightly simple, and I will have a couple of lily pads left over whenever I'm done. And then going to get a few things together, and then I'm probably going to go back to I'm going to go through the portal and kind of cut across the nether and go back to the underwater monument so I can get some work done there. So I'm going to get these lily pads, maybe look for some milk, maybe clean up my little base down here a bit, and then probably call it a day. Just a good short one. I'm continuing with the Star Trek Taiwan stuff. I'm just going to cover the first couple episodes we played together and kind of how those stories broke out. So if you will remember, this is a Star Trek game that I ran with some of the guys. They had characters: Tal, Ferengi engineer; Faven Tifochi, a kind of rebellious Andorian science officer; Delana, who is a former Akamarian soldier, now turned doctor; Dolar, who is a very lazy Ferengi logistics officer, diplomatic officer, I apologize. And then, of course, Revik, the de facto main character, the Vulcan hotshot pilot, who was raised outside of Vulcan culture, so he has a pretty loose rein on the whole Vulcan thing. But he does have a mentor, Tavel, who is full Vulcan, who thinks that there's a lot of potential in Revik. So, it is graduation day. Joint ceremony is being held, Starfleet Academy, McKinley Station in Earth orbit, where the USS Taiwan is, and Memory Alpha, a data repository for the entire Federation. The Memory Alpha is hosting the USS Enterprise F, because people like Enterprise Fs, and the cadets who are going to be signed to their respective ships are at that location. So 3 of them are at McKinley Station with the Taiwan. 3 of them are at Memory. Well, technically, 2 of the player characters who are at Memory Alpha are cadets, and one of them is Revik, who is an ensign because he's already been graduated for a year. So the deal is that the graduation ceremony is also celebrating the release of the Memory Alpha archives. The archives were encrypted years ago by rogue Starfleet officers, and that kept dangerous information from falling into the hands of the likes of the Romulans, the Cleons, the Ferengi, and the Cardassians. I mean, have you ever heard of the Genesis device? No, you haven't, and neither has anyone else. So, anyway, it's a good day for Starfleet. Revik is standing his last shift as officer of the watch for Memory Alpha, while the real officers are attending the ceremony. Tal is recovering, as the last phase of his Klingon warrior training was designed to keep him away as the first Ferengi to complete it. Delana's about to start her medical career, and the crew going to the less impressive Taiwan they're happy too. They're at a reception. We had some really good role-playing. I try to keep these short, and it was really good role-playing with a Tellarite friend of Dolar that he kind of picked up on the Tellarites' insulting cultural feature really quickly. We had some good interactions there. We met his mom. Going a little off script here because I really enjoyed it. It might be my favorite part of the game. Anyway, my favorite part of the game we actually ran. I'm very fond of some of the parts I have planned. Anyway, so everyone's chilling out until on Memory Alpha, the station itself seems to shoot 2 rainbow-colored torpedoes at the Enterprise. The first one savages the saucer, but they raise shields. The second torpedo still directly hits the engineering section, and the ship explodes. The Enterprise was in a low orbit so that it could be seen from Memory Alpha's observation dome. And Tal and Delana start throwing people to the ground before the shockwave of the dying ship hits them. On McKinley Station, Lieutenant Commander Shimok Cleon, who's supposed to be in command of the Taiwan, sees the video feed of the exploding ship and orders his cadets and crew on board. They race to Memory Alpha. And when the chief engineer says that the ship isn't ready for full warp, Shimak slays him on the bridge and finds an engineer who's willing to flood engineering with radiation to get the job done. Dolar, the slacker diplomatic officer, he ends up on the helm, and he and Thaven, the science officer, and Dorian do their best to get the ship underway, despite the fact that it is not ready to get underway and that their CEO is murder happy. Even for Cleon. On Memory Alpha, Revik detects boarders and comms mysteriously go down, so he grabs a phaser and investigates personally. He heads right for the memory core that's being decrypted. He finds the core being stolen by people, and I'm embarrassed to say this. They are in black outfits with motorcycle helmets, right out of terrible television show Star Trek: Picard. My bad, guys. I know you expected better. The motorcycle guys, who are not actually Romulans, stun him, and he wakes up after all the dust settles. I'm going to pop down here and see what's in this shipwreck. Could be some good stuff. It's part of just, clearing out my local space. Did I get everything? I got a lot of things. I need air now. Okay. So some more stuff happens. I'm summarizing for you. I'm trying to get better about writing these things to the length of, content I have, 15 to 20 minute windows. Ooh, all right, let's organize stuff. This is what you're here for. The tight inventory organizing and storaging schemes that I think you look for when you come to me playing Minecraft. So, Revik is commended, but most of the core data is lost. The Enterprise was actually going to start a mission to follow up on the core data with Revik's mentor Tavel as the second in command. Now, Tavel is in full command of the Taiwan, Shimak is his second in command, and remnants of the two crews will be joined together and assigned to the Enterprise's old mission. Our characters are assigned a Delta Shift, and our journey begins. We skip over the Amnesia 3 mission, which was just kind of a noodle incident where the crew got to know each other. And, we get into the real first session after that. So a note on shifts. Not even Star Trek fans in our group knew the updated settings. So I couldn't make them senior officers and beam them down to every away mission. It makes sense for them to be low-level crew members and for those small teams to do away missions and man bridge shifts together with occasional leadership from the senior staff. That's why our PCs are all together and why they only occasionally have adult supervision. So the first episode was a bit grimdark, but it was meant to be exciting and to hook players into the setting. Enterprise blows up, mysterious assailants, memory core secrets, it could be anything. But first, we went to Mud's planet. I didn't call it that, but it's the planet from the episode of Star Trek where Stellar Thief and People Trader, to put it mildly, Harry Mudd found a planet full of androids installed from Isaac Asimov. They found Harry Mudd, who greeted them and then tried to bamboozle them and steal their shuttlecraft. They tried to stun him, but that destroyed his ancient android body, and he warned them that this Federation would turn on them before breathing his last robotic breath. In the complex, all they found were places where ancient machinery had been hastily removed and ostensibly beamed out piecemeal. No real resolution, just a little bit of intrigue. Their next mission was to Vagra 2, so there were no records in the memory core of why these planets were important, just that they were important. I mean, that stuff was, in the original memory core, but the fragments they recovered didn't contain it. So, which is why we might know that it's where Armis the Tar Baby killed Tasha Yar, but these assholes didn't find anything except what looked like a Federation shuttle destroyed by a Federation torpedo. With some conjecture about Federation political prisoners, they beamed down an away team. Not our boys, no. Tal and Dolar are making a still in a common area locker room, and the Taiwan's removed upper phaser arrays. It's kind of an indoor track and storage area now, but slowly the secret spreads to Ashan and Delana, and they have to cut those two in and cut their own profit margins to ensure that everybody's keeping the secret. Revik is called into the operations room. The operations room is just below the main bridge, and that's where senior officers can monitor away missions without interfering with or being distracted by bridge operations. Captain Tavel has requested that Revik join Shimak in overseeing the away missions, kind of a training exercise. Again, Revik is his protege. He's kind of the main character, the main PC of the series, so he's going to get to do cool command stuff. Now, Shimak, as a hard ass, sees directly through Revik's kind of obedient, his good officer facade that keeps Tavel invested in him. But Shimak is such an asshole that Tavel just completely ignores him. So Revik, in being here, hears that away team die as they try to fight an embodiment of evil. And the player kind of cribs from, that didn't work, I'm just going to take you. I'm going to cut. Now you're going to leave. Now you're going to leave. Thanks. Amazing. Good stuff. Fucking hate these cows. Every time with this. I gotta finagle these animals. They're all floaty and stubborn. Don't like them. They just suck. Okay, let's go cows. So the player character tries to crib from a 20-year-old episode of Star Trek and convince everybody that shooting Armus with the lower phaser array is a bad idea. He fails, and Armus travels up the phaser blast to main engineering. I guess I need to talk about the layout of the Taiwan. It's a DFIT Akira class, transformed from carrier badass to dinky cargo ship. It's got fewer weapons, better sensors, and a more efficient but slower warp drive. It is an unfinished DFIT. Deck 5 opens in a hard vacuum. The upper phaser array has been removed, as I mentioned. Engineering and science offices have been converted into diplomatic officers. Junior officers have been shoved into unnecessarily small quarters. Perhaps the most important part of the Taiwan is the ship's safe, where the Latinum is kept and pressed into gold to pay payroll, to take on supplies, and make repairs. I mean, part of Tavel's ranking as captain is how well he budgets for the ship. I mean, the days where Starfleet would just roll up and give you free repairs for whatever are just long gone. And this austerity does have consequences in terms of, believe it or not, ships just don't function as efficiently when they're constantly trying to cut corners. So anyway, Armus is in engineering, and he disables most of the on-duty engineering shift. All off-duty engineering teams are called in, and Tal responds. He comes in from the upper core. He sees Armus a moment before Armus sees him. He jumps into a Jefferies tube that's a dead end, but which allows him to eject the core. So as Armus closes in, Tal's player makes a very in-character Ferengi howl and ejects the core without sealing the hole at all, and he blows Armus and almost himself into hard vacuum. Maybe I just like saying hard vacuum. Anyway, the last episode we played features a stop at their home port of Starbase 47 in orbit of Akamar. You might remember the Akamarians. You probably don't, but they're the guys from that TNG episode called The Vengeance Factor, where a society had turned away from ratings and they had to call in the last few of their people who decided to continue to raid as a lifestyle. So the disarmament process is still ongoing now, mostly because when the peace afforded by the old Federation began fading, the Akamarians saw the merits of having a fleet of combat ships, and that the raiding lifestyle was good to have an option. I mean, not that they would admit it, of course. There are all these inexplainable delays. So, Tal is in the doghouse for ejecting the core last week, and he's assigned to sift through the station's spare parts to supplement the Taiwan stores. It's a dreary shit assignment, but when Revik is offered to tour the Akamarian disarmament process with Captain Tavel, he decides to help out Tal instead. Meanwhile, Dolar, the slacker, glosses over his briefing on Akamarian unrest, and everybody else gets shore leave, station leave. Delana volunteers at a civilian clinic on the station, and Ashan comes along. Dolar is getting snail juice at a quiet coffee shop when he overhears Thaven talking to his wife, Rolaren. It's a sham marriage, but it allows a non-Federation citizen like Ro Laren to operate in Federation space. She's anti-Federation like Thaven, but it's clear she's manipulating the hot-headed young man for her own ends. But before Delar hears anything compelling, the Akamarians rise up. Well, this might be a good moment to cut that. Damn, I did not time this well at all. I got like 5 paragraphs left. Right, not all the Akamarians rise up, but enough of them do, and they try to take the station. Delar and Thaven are torn on doing the bare minimum expected of them as Starfleet officers. Delana tries to avoid combat and fails, but succeeds at combat. And Revik and Tal use the element of surprise, some jury-rigged junk, and lockpicking skills to retake the starbase's CIC. The surviving rebels are gathered up and taken by a Cleon vessel that had come to assist. The Akamarian government denies all knowledge, Revik and Tal get commendations, and the crew settles into their quarters on the base for 1 week of expedited repairs. And that is the end of the sessions we played, as interest petered out and I delayed games while I tried to make the next episode great instead of just good enough. So the rest of this series will just be plot outlines and character arcs that players wanted, or I wanted, or I talked about. And I will cover all of that stuff next week. So until then, keep asking questions and keep learning. Keep learning and keep asking questions.